Courageous leaders are the ones who are willing to sacrifice the short term in order to advance the long term. Courageous leaders are the ones who are willing to say no to the money because it's coming from a dirty source, and rather say yes, even though they know they'll have to tighten the belt in the short term because it's the right thing to do. Having a just cause, if we don't actually follow the just cause, if we don't actually make decisions through the lens of the just cause, is just marketing. It's just marketing. I'll give you my favorite example, right? The IOC, the International Olympic Committee, they have a mission statement, what they believe is their just cause, which is to advance the world, make the world a better place through sport. But for the fact that they're all corrupt, it's a great idea. My point is you actually have to have leadership that desperately, profoundly believes in the cause and will make decisions to advance that cause. They would sooner sacrifice their own personal interests to take care of their people. They would never sacrifice their people to protect their own interests. It's called leadership. It's called leadership. We confuse rank and leadership. Rank has nothing to do with leadership. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of organizations who are not leaders. They have authority, and we do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we would not follow them. And yet I know many people who sit at lower ranks who have no authority, and yet they have made a choice, the choice to look after the person to the left of them, and the choice to look after the person to the right of them, and we would trust them and follow them anywhere. Leadership is the acceptance of the awesome responsibility to create an environment in which people can work at their natural best.
I think people misunderstand what the word entrepreneur means. You know, small business owners own small businesses, and entrepreneurs solve problems. And there are many, many entrepreneurs inside corporations.
Yeah.
And not all small business owners are entrepreneurs.
I see.
So an entrepreneur is somebody who's constantly looking for a better way to do something. There's a sort of a mad scientist about them. It's not simply, you know, understanding structure and building business. And that's the way I was in the corporate world, which, you know, depending on my boss, was either welcomed or not.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I used to get in trouble for that's not how we do it around here. And
really?
I'm like, did I break any rules? They're like, no. I'm like, did I get it done? They're like, yes. I'm like, did I get it done better than you expected? They're like, yes. I'm like, so what exactly is the problem? How do you fall in love faster? I mean, these are like, you don't. It takes as long as it takes. I hate to say that. You can go to the gym for 9 hours, but you won't get into shape. But if you go to the gym every day for 20 minutes, you will get into shape. But the problem is I don't know how long it takes. It'll be a little quicker for some, a little slower for others. And so there's no app for trust. There's no app for that. This is a human condition, and we have to do the things that are right for human beings. And you won't build trust with everybody on the team at the same pace. Some will be quicker and some will be slower. How long does it take to make a friend? I don't know. I just know that if you do the right thing, you will make a friend.
The problem with passion, people gave me the same stupid advice. Do what you love. Thank you. Thanks. Find your passion. Thank you. Like, what am I supposed to do with that advice?
Right.
And what I learned is that passion, like profit, is a result. When we commit ourselves to some higher purpose, some higher cause, passion is the result. When we work hard for something we don't believe in, it's called stress. When we work hard for something we do believe in, it's called passion. Passion is not the entry point, it's at the exit point. So the question is not to find your passion or find the thing you're passionate about. The question is, what do you believe? The question is, what are your ideals? What are your values? And where are the places in which those people or those organizations share your values, share your beliefs? Who is articulating a vision of a world that you would like to live in? Push yourself in those directions, be around those people, align yourself with those organizations, and what you will find is you show up every day with passion.
I talk to so many smart, fantastic, ambitious, idealistic, hard-working kids, and they're right out of college, they're in their entry-level jobs, and I'll ask them, how's it going? And they'll say, I think I'm gonna quit. And I'm like, why? They say to me, I'm not making an impact. I'm like, you've been here 8 months, right? They treat the sense of fulfillment or even love like it's a scavenger hunt, like it's something you look for. My millennial friends, they've gone through so many jobs. They're either getting fired, it was mutual, or they're quitting because they're not making an impact, or they're not finding the thing they're looking for, or they're not feeling fulfilled, as if it's a scavenger hunt. Love, a job you find joy from, is not something you discover. It's not like, I found love. Here it is. I found a job I love. That's not how it works. Both of those things require hard work. You are in love because you work very hard every single day of your life to stay in love. You find a job that brings you ultimate joy because you work hard every single day to serve those around you, and you maintain that joy. It's not a discovery. But the problem is this sense of impatience. It's as if an entire generation is standing at the foot of a mountain. They know exactly what they want. They can see the summit. What they can't see is the mountain. This large, immovable object. That doesn't mean you have to do your time. That's not what I'm talking about. Take a helicopter climb, I don't care, but there's still a mountain. Life, career fulfillment, relationships are journeys. The problem is, this entire generation has an institutionalized sense of impatience, and do they have the patience to go on the journey to maintain love, to feel fulfilled, or do they just quit and on to the next, dump and on to the next, ghost and on to the next?
In the 18th century, there was something that spread across Europe and eventually made its way to America called puerperal fever, also known as the Black Death of childbed. Basically what was happening is women were giving birth and they would die within 48 hours after giving birth. This Black Death of childbirth was the ravage of Europe, and it got worse and worse and worse over the course of over a century. In some hospitals, it was as high as 70% of women who gave birth who would die as a result of giving birth. But this was the Renaissance. This was the time of empirical data and science, and we had thrown away things like tradition and mysticism. These were men of science, these were doctors. And these doctors and men of science wanted to study and try and find the reason for this Black Death of childbed, and so they got to work studying, and they would study the corpses of the women who had died. And in the morning they would conduct autopsies, and then in the afternoon they would go and deliver babies and finish their rounds. And it wasn't until somewhere in the mid-1800s that Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes, father of Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, realized that all of these doctors who were conducting autopsies in the morning weren't washing their hands before they delivered babies in the afternoon. And he pointed it out and said, guys, you're the problem. And they ignored him and called him crazy for 30 years. Until finally somebody realized that if they simply washed their hands, it would go away. And that's exactly what happened. When they started sterilizing their instruments and washing their hands, the Black Death of childbed disappeared. My point is, the lesson here is, sometimes you're the problem. We've seen this happen all too recently with our new men of science and empirical studiers and these men of finance who are smarter than the rest of us until the thing collapsed. And they blamed everything else except themselves. And my point is take accountability for your actions. You can take all the credit in the world for the things that you do right, as long as you also take responsibility for the things you do wrong. It must be a balanced equation. You don't get it one way and not the other. You get to take credit when you also take accountability.
When you talk about what you believe, people who believe what you believe recommend you or want to introduce you to people.
I see.
And so the more I talked about it, the more somebody would call me and say, hey, this is someone I think you should meet.
Yeah.
And people found me. I don't know, from somebody else.
So you did not seek out, I want to do this for...
No,
okay, yeah.
no. So somebody reached out to me and said, they got my name.
Yeah.
And they said, we've heard about you, we've heard your work. We'd like to invite you to do a TEDx talk in Puget Sound in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, sounds amazing. TEDx was it was a relatively new thing back then, and it was a big deal. It still had a lot of real sort of gravitas to it, and so I was very excited, and of course said yes to the opportunity.
Here's a thing that's always boggled my mind, right? Why is it, on balance, not always, but on balance, why is it that small companies tend to be more innovative than big companies? right? Small companies that are under-resourced, can't necessarily get the best and brightest. They're going to go out of business any day, and yet they come up with brilliant ideas. And big companies full of resources, full of amazing people, buy the little companies that come up with the good ideas. That's usually how big companies innovate. They buy the smaller ones, right? Why is that? Why is it that the most resource companies tend not? And I think it's a question of reality. And what I mean by that is small companies, their vision is more distant than their grasp, right? They have delusions of grandeur. We're going to change the world, change industries, reinvent this, reinvent that. We have no money and no people, but so what? My point is the grasp is shorter than the vision. And I think what happens is as companies get bigger and bigger and bigger with more and more resources, what they start to do is one of two things. Either their visions become well within their grasp and they don't readjust the vision, or they actually bring the vision back to put within their grasps, right? Make things very achievable. Difficult, but achievable. For vision to truly be vision, it should feel unachievable. When a small business gets together and says, here's our vision, everybody goes like this. How are we going to do that? In big businesses, we say, here's a vision, everybody goes, all right, yeah, no, got it. We'll do a back plan, we got that. And I firmly believe that innovation is born out of the struggle. Innovation is born out of the resourcefulness that you're forced to figure out because literally the vision is way beyond your grasp. Regardless of how many resources you have, it should always feel overwhelming and impossible. Take a group of people with tons of resources, to give them a vision, they're going to go,
What you'll find is that the better you are at communicating your why, people will want to work for you regardless of the opportunity that you afford them. Like, they want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
We do a little thing, which we've been doing for years and years and years, called a give and take. Whenever there's any kind of relationship, whether it's an outside partnership or even somebody who joins our team, we do something called a give and take, where we want somebody to be selfish and selfless within the relationship. So not give and get, but give and take. So we'll ask them, what is it that you have to give to us, that you have that you think that we need, right? And they'll tell us. And then we'll say, great, what is it that you selfishly want from us? And we want them to tell us what they can get from us and no one else.
I believe in that so much.
And when those things match, you have a balanced relationship. Because, so for example, I've had it with people. They'll tell me what they have to offer, and that's awesome because that's what I want. And then they'll say what they want to take, and they go, oh, I want to work with smart people. I'm like, plenty of smart people. What is it you want to take from me? They're like, oh, I want to help build something. Wonderful, do that anywhere. What do you want to take selfishly from me that you can get nowhere else? And if they can't answer the question, I want to engage in a relationship, and the reason is because in time, the relationship is unbalanced. They're going to be giving, but they're not taking, and I don't even know how to give them what they want. Then they'll complain they're not making enough money, or because it's not balanced.